Yeah, we live, man.
I thought you was going.
Oh, okay. MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursaleen. Sayyidina wa habibina ala Mustafa. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, we'd like to welcome you all to tonight's broadcast of the Black Imams Roundtable. I'm Imam Faheem, a.k.a. CMD Red, the counterpart to Detroit Red, Brother Al-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz. And to my side, but definitely in front of me in stature, is Imam Naeem Abdullah Masjid of Pittsburgh. We make up 2/3 of the Black Imams Roundtable. And joining us shortly, he's Imam Amin Muhammad of Masjid Muhammad of Atlantic City, who makes up the third part, the anchor, the lead, the choreographer, and the one who calls the shots behind the scenes because he's not charismatic enough to take the front mic. The Temptations, Otis play the background. MashaAllah. And so, alhamdulillah, we thank you all for joining us. So first things first, let's please like and share this platform, inshallah ta'ala. Share it on your platforms. And also, let's be sure to, continue to help us to reach our weekly goal of $500. So we get around 50 to 100 people every week or more, and more people who will view this broadcast later on. $5 or $10 per person will help us reach the goal very quickly, inshallah ta'ala. And, it's in preparation for Ramadan, we need to be very generous. We can start training now, inshallah. Give for yourself, one other person, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may he double and multiply your reward. It's these little consistent efforts that have big rewards with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Something as minimal as short, giving $10 a week could be something to offset something else on Yom Kiyama, inshallah. We never know. And so we want to be diligent and proactive and doing good deeds all the time, inshallah. And so we, in understanding our people and our situations, we try not to burden people. And so, $10 is not really anything for us. $20 is really nothing for many of us. $50 to $100 is really nothing for many of us. And even more than that, we can get it done. So everyone knows their situation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And so whatever you're able to do, we ask you to please, just be consistent in it, inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so this is part 2 of our reflections on the significance of Malcolm X. And so in preparation for our seminar that'll be coming up on February the 21st and 22nd, we will be doing an intensive on the life and the legacy of Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz. We're doing some reviews beforehand, to just, give you a glimpse into what we're going to be discussing at the conference. It's going to be the short shot, inshallah ta'ala. Please make sure, if you haven't already, to register so we can get a good count of people who's coming. And, so we can be able to accommodate our people very well and be generous hosts and gracious hosts. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq and pulling it off. Amin. My discussion tonight, I just was reviewing some of the autobiography of Malcolm X. Was very, it has a lot of jewels in it. And so as we look at Al-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz's life, you can kind of sum it up in 3 parts. So the life that he had before when he was a youth, the life that he had while he was in prison, well, more not 4 parts actually. The life that he had while he was in prison, the part that he had in, being instrumental in helping the Nation of Islam grow, and then the very short life that he had after he broke with the Nation of Islam. And so, and probably some more, that's just things I'm saying off the top of my head. But his life was, replete with so many examples of how it is to overcome obstacles, to discipline yourself, to be committed, to be stable, to have loyalty, to have consistency, and then to experience a world where, betrayal or mistrust and, putting your life in danger, because of certain things and certain elements, And also the biggest part is his patterns of transformation. It's probably the biggest thing of Al-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz life is how he was able to transform, and grow in spite of some of the things that he dealt with, inshallah. So it's always remarkable for many of us who come from a background like he had as a hustler, as a person who was, involved in the street life and those things, and people who've been in prison, and then also people who are intellectuals, you read Al-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz's autobiography that, he was up against people, who were, Harvard graduates and Yale, and people who had all of this education and philosophy majors and stuff like that. And, he rocked with the best of them, and he had a 8th grade education, so he was a different breed, mashallah. So tonight I want to play this clip. I want to play this clip real quick, inshallah, that I want to share with you that I took from, it was a documentary. Part of it was they was interviewing his wife, Betty Shabazz, and what was her views on Malcolm. But this was part of one of the last speeches that he did. And so it was very powerful to show why, he used to say to himself that he was already a dead man, he was marked for death, and he knew that they were coming to get him because he was uncompromising and sticking to the truth. So I want to share this quick video. I figured out a way to do it so it shouldn't take long. Inshallah, it shows up. Okay, 1 second, because y'all didn't contribute to the laptop fund, so you got to wait till when it loads up. Okay, Bismillah. Add this to the queue. Okay, this should go.
I'm a field Negro. If I can't live in the house as a human being, I'm praying for a wind to come along. If the master won't treat me right and he's sick, I'll tell the doctor to go in the other direction. But if all of us are going to live as human beings, as brothers, then I'm for a society of human beings that can practice brotherhood. So before I sit down, I want to thank you for listening to me. I hope I haven't put anybody on the spot. I'm not intending to try and stir you up and make you do something that you wouldn't have done anyway. I pray that God will bless you in everything that you do. I pray that you will grow intellectually so that you can understand the problems of the world and where you fit into in that world picture. And I pray that all the fear that has ever been in your heart will be taken out. And when you look at that man, if you know he's nothing but a coward, you won't fear him. If he wasn't a coward, he wouldn't gang up on you. He wouldn't need to sneak around here. This is how they function. They function in mobs. That's a coward. They put on a sheet so you won't know who they are. That's a coward. Now, the time will come when that sheet will be ripped off. If the federal government doesn't take it off, we'll take it off.
MashaAllah, that was a very powerful clip. I think that was the speech, and Imam Naeem could correct me. I think that was the speech the week before he was assassinated, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that was when he was in Selma, Alabama, when Martin Luther King was in jail.
Okay, yeah.
King.
Yeah,
so he's talking to a Southern audience, that was more inclined to Martin Luther King. So that's kind of like when they was like trying to hook up.
Okay, mashallah. So there were a lot of jewels, and I just want to expound on them a few. So at this point, at this stage in Al-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz's life, he was starting to grow, and as he, kind of, broke from the nation, he was starting to go to a more humanitarian level, and so he already had some reach. One of his goals was to go to the United Nations, and appeal to the United Nations about the, what was going on with, at that time, 22 million African Americans in America and their plight, and how something needs to be done about it, And he was very adamant about, if the United Nations doesn't do something, we're going to do something. And just imagine talking to a people who had the fear of, the Klan in the South, and, these people being in power and still being an institution to this very day. I seen a clip not too long ago about where the Klan, they was marching somewhere in the South, in the street, and, basically without any kind of trouble. And, when we see brothers, marching with their rights to carry arms in public, that there's an outrage, And so, we look at these things and how Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz was doing this transformation, ready to go to the next step and then take it as a global issue, not just American racist issue, a global issue, connecting us with people across different continents, and understanding that we outnumber, those people who are, racist. We have more numbers, we have more power. And once we learn how to harness it together, we're an unstoppable force. And so you notice why you all heard of this COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was an organization, was a program put together by the CIA. And COINTELPRO basically said that, they had to make sure they, I forget the exact words, where they had to infiltrate all the black movements and make sure they do not allow another black leader to uprise, because what the potential of what they could do, the potential of what they can do to wake up the masses. And, and Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz had that power, he had that charisma, he had that articulation, and he also was ready, he was with the smoke, as opposed to when he was with the nation. One of the protocols of the nation is they weren't allowed to do violence. They were supposed to be nonviolent, and as much as Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, talked about, the nonviolence of, Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement, they weren't allowed to do anything. They weren't allowed to have any confrontations with police and anything. And then it was kind of another thing where they didn't do that, but then, they ended up killing, other black people, so the same kind of thing. But that part where he said, I didn't want to tell you nothing about you, something you wasn't going to do anyway. And that piercing stare, it was like saying something without being unsaid. So, people in the audience got the drift, like, yeah, because what we were ready to do is what we've been thinking we should have been doing all this time. But, someone told us, we had to be nonviolent, we had to be passive. We had to let these people spit on us and sick dogs on us and put hoses on us. And Malcolm was like, no, we ain't doing that no more, And so at the end of his life, he was really waking up people to be ready on a humanitarian level, to overcome all of the stuff that, we've been involved with in this country. And, he had that kind of power. And so you can see why he was marked for death. And, of course, there's speculations about who did it and all the people that were involved. But as I was reading the autobiography, I forget what chapter it was in. I think it's the chapter of Out. And so he was talking about with Elijah Muhammad and, his, what's the word I can use? His, where he had these young girls he got pregnant that was in the nation and put them on trial.
His indiscretions.
His indiscretions, right. See what it's so great to have a genius on your team. These indiscretions that he had a number of them, he fathered a number of children. And in the autobiography, Malcolm X said that he had heard these rumors as far back as 1955. As far back as 1955. And so he got out of prison in 1952. And so this stuff was going on early, This stuff was going on early, 1955. So he heard the rumors and he said he just told himself to ignore them because he didn't want to believe them, right? And, and so this is one of the things about when you do research about cult leaders and cult followers, the cult followers have a thing where they will suspend their own intellect, their own thought process in order to appease the leader, And when you look up this stuff, and another thing about cults and cult leaders, right, is that, or cult followers actually, you know, many times, you know, you see people in the cult and the movement, you be like, how could they even believe that stuff? How could they follow that stuff? How could somebody go to Guyana and drink Kool-Aid, right? And all of these things that some of these extreme cults went through. And so when you study the nature of cults, right, you know that it wasn't really like dumb people who joined the cults. It was people who had money, who had prestige, and had, you know, they were intellectual people. They were students, you know. But one of the things that invites people into cults who are at a vulnerable stage in their lives, and they're looking for some type of connection, because every human is looking to belong to something that has some connection to somebody or somebody. They're looking for something authoritative, something that they can follow, something that can help them feel good about themselves. And so you don't, you know, but the thing is, you don't, you know, a lot of people have those, you know, intellectual smarts, right? But they don't have street smarts, right? And so there was a chapter in the book, I think it's the same chapter. So Malcolm was denying his own intellect when he heard these stories, and then he started seeing the headlines, right? And so he was like still trying to find a way. And then he even mentioned in the book, you know, he said, if you notice, around 1962, I really stopped talking about doctrine, you know, morality. I started talking about social issues, you know, trying to wake people up, right? And so, because he didn't want to be pressed about it. And then it came to a point where it was no longer, it couldn't be denied, because then it came out in the press. And then in Chicago, he had heard in the autobiography that there were Nation of Islam members leaving mosque number 2, which is the main mosque in Chicago, that like key members were already leaving on the low. And so people was like, you know, the word was starting to get out, you know. And then it was like it was other like non-nation members too, like, you know, black people around that way was like, you know, they started to hear the rumors. And then Malcolm X mentioned in the autobiography about you know, he was talking to Dick Gregory, you know. So Dick Gregory was, you know, a friend of Malcolm X, and he started talking to him, and he was like, man, Dick Gregory was, you know, he had street smarts, you know. And so he said, man, he's basically like, man, your man ain't nothing but a pimp, you know what I mean? And he said in the book, you know, he couldn't repeat what he said because it was angering him, you know. And so he basically, in so many words, he had to tell Dick Gregory, like, man, chill, man, fall back. You're talking about this leader, the one who I would give my life for, the one I would take a bullet for, the one that I couldn't even fathom that he would, you know, engage in these types of things. But the rumors were starting as back as 1955. And so, you know, that's one of the characteristics of cult leaders. They already have some immoral indiscretions, right? All of them, you know, there was some, you know, either financially, sexually, or some type of thing where they let their people down, you know. And so, you know, and in the book, and this is in the movie as well for those who didn't read the book, you know, Malcolm X flew out to talk to Elijah Muhammad about it. He could no longer take it. You know, he was hearing too much stuff, so he didn't know which way to go. But he didn't want to believe the writing on the wall. He didn't want to believe the writing on the wall. So, and you look at Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, he was super intelligent, super articulate. And so, but, you know, this human connection, the one to belong, and, you know, and that vulnerability will make you deny stuff that's obvious, you know. And so he went and talked to him, and he told him that this is part of prophecy. And then he gave these stories that, you know, as Muslims, we don't believe. And, you know, about prophets committing sin. You know, we believe as Ahlul Sunnah wa Jama'ah that the prophets, they have necessary attributes that make them the prophets, you know. So they have to be, you know, they have to have sidq, they have to have truthfulness, you know. They can't be known as liars. They have to be upright. They don't commit any immorality. And here you have the Elijah Muhammad that they called the messenger of Allah. They called him the messenger of Allah, having multiple cases of adultery, you know. And so I don't know, you know, in that time, like, where were the people who, you know, well, they probably got killed or something like that, you know, or looked at as crazy. Because, you know, when the cult members are in the cult, they are more dangerous than the cult leaders themselves in their defense of the leader, you know. So it's very dangerous for someone who has an infatuation with a leader because of what they speak and how they make them feel. Those leaders, I mean, those followers can get crazy, you know, and they might not even have been those kind of people before, but they'll be ready to kill. You know, you think about the cult with Charles Manson and those people. These were regular like students that he influenced so much that they ended up being killers. They weren't like no, you know, killers or nothing like that. But these people, because of the influence of the cult mentality, you know, these people became killers. You know, and so as Malcolm was asking him about it, you know, he said it was prophecy. But there's one thing that's kind of cryptic. This is kind of cryptic now I was reading it. So Malcolm X was mentioning that he became the nation's first national minister. And he said at a late 1963 rally in Philadelphia, Mr. Muhammad, embracing me, said to that audience before us, "This is my most faithful, hardworking minister. He will follow me until he dies." I don't know. That just struck me different now. I'm reading it, you know. So almost it's like, you know, if the rumors were happening back in 1955, right? And he knew
Before that, but
Yeah,
I didn't want to interrupt your flow. But go ahead.
no, but you the genius, man. You know, but yeah, well, even before that. So I'm just was going by the autobiography. And so if these rumors were, you know, even before that, and he knew the kind of the person, the loyalty that he had in Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz. So I think he had a vision that he knew that he would have to get rid of him. And he kind of like said the message right there on stage because, you know, this was late 1963. And that was, so I don't know what they meant by late here. It had to be October. So November 1963 is when he made the statement about JFK. And then I think a week later, or was it a week later, Imam, that he got silenced?
Next day.
So it was somewhere around October, November when he did this, and Elijah Muhammad braced him publicly in Philadelphia and told him, you know, he will follow me until he dies. So that's some crazy diabolical stuff, man, you know. And so the more you dig into this stuff and how you have to appreciate the honesty and truthfulness and how Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz will, you know, he was subhanAllah, one of our great fearless leaders who didn't, you know, who was able to transform from that, you know. And at the end, it's starting to get a little ugly because he, you know, he wasn't shy about what he was saying. And then he also had wrote back once he made the Hajj and he started visiting African countries. Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz had wrote a letter in one of his letters saying that Elijah Muhammad was a religious fraud or fake, I think he said. And so because he was exposed to the true teachings, and now he knew that this man was no longer a messenger of Allah. So he broke out of that stupor that he was in, you know, and he had time to reflect and he had people around him. So, you know, mashallah. So he became, he was on par to be like bringing that field Negro mentality out of people who were tired of this nonsense. And then after he passed away, you know, we had the movements like the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, those kind of things, who basically they were on that type of time. You know, Kwame Ture, known as Stokely Carmichael, he said, you know, we ain't our grandparents, you know, we ain't scared, you know, we not, you know, we ready. And so that kind of fire is what America has always been afraid of. You know, because of the injustices done to us, it's only right that we stand against us. And we already have it in us, you know, to fight against it, you know, and they know this. So there's always you know, a systematic way to keep us down because they never want us to awaken. And now the growth of Islam and the African American community, you know, from that time up until, you know, now that we start to see the trend that Black people were embracing true Islam and coming, you know, knowing everything and then having this history behind us, it meant for some power to happen, you know. And then you can see why then this infiltration of another cult that came along, you know, in the 80s and 90s, you know. And so that was remarkable. But that speech was very, you know, it was passionate, it was fiery, it was serious, you know, and it made somebody think, you know, just that portion that will make you think, man, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to be on go time. You know, I'm tired of these people, you know. So you hear that, you know, if the federal government won't yank their hoods off, we'll take them off. You know, can you imagine how that resonated through the country and throughout the nation, reaching these kind of people? And we understand that we all have a united cause and we have a common enemy, and that we need to fight against that enemy, and we need to own our power. We need to have our, sovereignty. We need to be a people who are within this nation, servants of Allah, who's subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do for self. And may Allah who subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them. But that was my intro, inshallah. Took a little longer than usual. But that's that clip I showed was I found it on Amazon Prime. But you can probably just, look up Malcolm X speeches of Selma, and you can find the whole thing, inshallah. And you might have to spend some money. So we always ask y'all to spend some money. So yeah, drop a couple dollars. You can rent it on Amazon for like $5 or less. And that
don't do that. I'll email it to you. I got almost most of his speeches on my computer.
Okay, so we'll do this. Imam Naeem will email it to you, and you pay him the money that you would pay them. Yeah, if he's willing to do it and he has all of this stuff, why not? Okay, so I'll end there, inshallah, and I'll turn it over to Imam Naeem.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ورضي الله تعالى عن السادة التابعين وعلماء العاملين وأئمة الأربعة المجتهدين ومقلدهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته everyone. How y'all doing? Before I get into what I was going to say, I just want to mention some things connected to what Imam Faheem mentioned. And he was talking about the indiscretions and when Malcolm found out. There's a few things. The first thing I'm going to mention, I believe is in an autobiography. Malcolm's younger brother, Reginald, he was the first one in their family to join the nation, if I remember correctly. And then his older brothers joined, and then they got Malcolm to join while he was in prison. Reginald was kicked out of the nation as well. And he was exposing the indiscretions back then when Malcolm was still in prison. And so that's what I meant by even before that. So that stuff wasn't new. Even when they were that small, that stuff had been going on. And they said that he had some sort of a mental breakdown as a result, which is extremely important. It's going to come back up later. Also, Malcolm had a girlfriend before he got locked up. He had many girlfriends, but one of them, her name was Evelyn. And Evelyn, his sister, Ella, I'm going to talk a little bit about her again. She really liked. When Malcolm got out and became part of the nation, and got out, Ella still wanted him to marry Evelyn. And Malcolm, he was one, even when he was locked up, he stayed in contact with a lot of the people that he used to be affiliated with. So it's not like he lost contact. He even had this cougar that used to come visit him in prison. You know what I mean when I say cougar, right? I know Imam Faheem understands. But Malcolm's sister didn't like her at all. Right? But she used to come visit Malcolm and bring him home cooked food and all that kind of stuff. But Malcolm kept in contact with all of these people. And when he came home, he gave them da'wah to join the nation. Evelyn, remember his former girlfriend, he's in the nation. He didn't marry her. His sister said that he was too at the time, he was he was too deep into the nation, the doctrine, and Elijah Muhammad to be even think about women. That was her perspective. And so Evelyn joins the nation, and because of Malcolm's dawah, and gets her a job as one of Elijah Muhammad's secretaries. And she's one of them that got impregnated. Evelyn, Malcolm's ex-girlfriend. There's a lot there, but I didn't talk about that. I just wanted to embellish and, support what you were saying, Imam Faheem. Alhamdulillah. So, I named my presentation. Again, you give all Imam Faheem the credit, and I'm PowerPoint crazy now. I gave this presentation the title, Nisa al Shahid, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, The Women Around the Martyr, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Rahimahullah. Inspired by the book, Rijal Hawla Rasul, The Men Around the Messenger, talking about the companions of the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So I want to talk about three women. The first one on the left is Louise. I see they jacked up all my wording here. That's all right, it's cool. The first one on the left is Louise, Malcolm's mother. The one in the middle is Ella. We spoke about her last week as well a little bit. Ella Collins, Malcolm's older sister. And all the way to the right is Betty Shabazz. You probably didn't even recognize her. Malcolm's wife. I think this is important because whenever you talk about a great leader or charismatic figure, a lot of times we don't appreciate the people around them that contributed to whatever they were doing. And so I definitely wanted to highlight not just random people around him, but key figures in his life that had a major impact on himself and his work. So alhamdulillah, this is the same picture. Malcolm's mother. She was born in Grenada, which is in the Caribbean. That's why I have a map here, so y'all can get a visual of where she's from. Her name was Helen Louise Langdon. And there's some discrepancy about when she was born, whether it was 1894 or 1897. But she was born in the Caribbean. So Malcolm has a lot of, has some Caribbean lineage. And there's even people, they're trying to bring that to light because of how impactful Malcolm was and show that, hey, Grenada had a part in shaping and fashioning the man who we all came to know and love, Malcolm X. But when she was there, when she was in school, they say she excelled in writing, and she spoke 3 languages. She spoke English, French, and Creole. And her children often talked about, like, when they were in school, later on, when they were in school, how, like, she would even be against the brainwashing that they was teaching in the school. And so sometimes she will be taking stuff and translating it to French and all. Just she was an involved parent. She was raised by her grandparents because her mom died early until she migrated to Montreal, Canada, where with one of her uncles. And when she got there, The Garvey movement was strong. Marcus Garvey, United Negro Improvement Association, UNIA. She got involved with that. That's where she met Malcolm's father, Earl Little, in Canada. And that's where they got married. Then obviously they moved into the United States, and we talked about that a lot last week. And so here, this is this one of the same slides we showed last week to highlight how Malcolm's mother was very active in the Garvey movement. She wrote for the Negro World, which was the weekly publication of the Garvey movement, and it had a circulation of 200,000. Some of us don't even have 200,000 friends on our Instagram or our YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or X or TikTok. Just to give you some context, right? People that's like, for example, people that's really into social media, into YouTube and all of that, 200,000 is an achievement, but you compared to a lot of other people, you ain't really doing nothing. When you get like 1 million followers, then you're really doing something in a social media thing. Even though 200,000 is nothing to sneeze at, but just to give you some context, right? So before this social media, internet, and all that kind of stuff, Marcus Garvey's newspaper had a circulation of 200,000. And Malcolm's mom was a writer for that paper. And one thing also, if you know about Marcus Garvey's history, you know that he was framed and set up by the first Black undercover FBI agent before he became known as the FBI, right? Marcus Garvey. And so for a second, he was on the run. They had a warrant out for his arrest. Malcolm's parents let him stay in their house while he was on the run. Marcus Garvey. So these wasn't just some nondescript, nobody knows their name followers. They were very active. This is the household that Malcolm came from. You have to be aware of that. This is extremely important. A lot of times, because Malcolm is so great, we concentrate on him and we neglect all of the other people around him who were putting in work. So he came from an activist household. So we know that her husband, Malcolm's father, Earl, was killed in 1931. He was beaten, then left on the trolley tracks for the train to run over. And then so now she's dealing with all of these kids. 7 kids. By herself. Independent. Do for self mentality. She didn't want to take welfare, nothing. But when she got to the situation where she had to, right, that kind of like demoralized her. And then also, everywhere they moved at, you got to understand, when people is activists like this, the ops know you and recognize you, and they target you. And so at the time, Malcolm was cutting up, right? Not going to school, just acting up. And on top of that, she met another man, and she got pregnant, Malcolm's mom. And then when she got pregnant, dude was like, "No, I'm good, I'm out." He left. He disappeared. So she gave birth to another child named Robert. And just for references, he was born in 1938 and died in 1999. They say she had what we now call postpartum depression. So just think of the weight of all of this. Her first husband being killed, on top of all the stuff they went through before he got killed. The system is attacking him, and threatening to take away her children, and which they eventually did. And so the judge used all of that as an excuse to commit her to a state mental institution. That's one of the ways they used to put people in prison if they couldn't catch you doing a crime. They put you in a state mental institution. You know, somebody can easily do that to you now. These people like abuse. They don't like you. They'll call people on you and they'll lock you up for like 3 days to evaluate you. So they did that to Malcolm's mom, and she was in that place for 25 years. She was locked up in there from 1939 to 1963. Malcolm saw her like 2 times during that whole period. So she came home in 1963, and they had like a family reunion and everything. She died in 1989. And they cremated her and spread her ashes. I have a picture of an older picture of her, but I didn't get a chance to put it up on the slide, on the presentation. So when you talk about not only Malcolm, but Malcolm's family, all of his brothers and sisters, they were activists at heart. Their foundation in the Garvey movement. They get it from his parents, particularly the mother. Ella Collins, who I spoke about last week, just a little bit more about her. When Malcolm got put into foster care and was being moved around, at one point, she got legal custody of him. So that's when he moved to Boston. And he says in his autobiography, page 45 through 46, no physical move in my life has been more pivotal or profound in its repercussions. All praise is due to Allah that I went to Boston when I did. If I hadn't, I'd probably be a brainwashed Black Christian. I mentioned that last week. I don't think I mentioned this though. Ella was active in helping Malcolm open Temple number 11 in Boston. They used to meet. It says meet. It shouldn't say meet. They used to meet in Brother Lloyd X's living room until Malcolm got there in 1954. By him fishing and putting in his work for 3 months, they was able to get their own place and they didn't have to meet in someone's living room anymore. And this is extremely important because this whole time, Malcolm's trying to get his sister into the nation. And she's like, nah, I ain't feeling that old. The way you're a little bit too heavy on this Elijah stuff. She was saying it back then. And I know a lot of y'all gonna say, that you just don't like people that call themselves prophets after Prophet Muhammad. You the one who wrote the Musalima lessons, like Imam Amin always be talking about, right? But this is mentioned in this book right here, The Seventh Child by. This is Ella's son, Rodnell. He wrote a book a long time ago. And this book that he wrote, they had found their African ancestor by the name of Ajer. And they assume that he was Muslim, came from West Africa. They didn't have much detail for them, but they was trying to put together, their family tree. And they found this, the African connection way after Malcolm was assassinated. And so this was one of the main pieces they were looking for in building their family tree, the little family tree back to Africa. And so one of their uncles started narrating the story and all that kind of stuff. And so his moms didn't get a chance to finish a book dealing with their family. So he picked up the baton, and this was the result of it. So he mentions a lot of what I'm talking about comes out of this book right here. That's why we know so many details, because a lot of times Malcolm used to be with his sister, especially as, when he got out, was part of the nation. And after that, her son would be right there. He was a young man at the time. So he'd be right there. He heard a lot of these things firsthand. So Malcolm and the people there establish their own spot. They get their own temple in 1954. In 1959, by this time, Louis X is the minister there. Y'all know who Louis X is, right?
Calypso Louis.
Yeah. Family. 34453 family. Y'all kind of quiet there. Y'all there? Do y'all know who Louis X is? Where y'all at? I don't see the comments moving or nothing. Louis X, do y'all know who he is? I just stated Farrakhan, exactly. So he was the minister at the temple at the time. This why what I'm about to tell you is extremely important. It is not it's not only important to understand the history, it's very important to understand the type of position we need to take right now. There was a doctor who used to basically take advantage of people. A black doctor used to drug up people that he wanted to take advantage of and have them all up in his house, right? So this happened one time. But she wasn't part of the nation. But she was related to someone in the nation. So everyone's trying to like, yo, we need to get her. He got her kidnapped and all that kind of stuff. And the nation policy is not to be involved with non-believers, the dumb, deaf, and the blind, or as their offshoot would say, the 85ers, right? The 85% that's dumb, deaf, and blind. That was their policy. We don't insert ourselves in their affairs. But they're like, yo, man, that's I forgot the guy's name, but that was part of the nation. That's his sister. And this doctor dude got his sister all up in the house, drugged up, taking advantage of her, and we ain't doing nothing. And we claim to be doing represent black people and trying to save black people. We can do something right now. Louis X was like, nope, that's against policy. That's her business. So Ella and some other people from the temple went and got her up out of there. They went to the house, and whatever happened, and they rescued her. So that broke the Nation of Islam's policy of non-involvement in 85ers affairs. So instead of suspending Ella himself, meaning Louis X, he reached out to Malcolm. And so Malcolm came and suspended his own sister. So she got suspended from a 90-day suspension in 1959. But when she got kicked out, suspended, Malcolm would try to get her back, the suspensions or whatever. She's like, nah, I'm good. I ain't coming back. In 1959, Malcolm's sister Ella Collins breaks away from the Nation of Islam, takes Shahada at the Masjid in Quincy, Massachusetts, and starts attending services there regularly, and establishes the Sarah A. Little Preparatory School of the Arts, where Arabic, Swahili, Spanish, and French are taught. I mentioned this last week about Malcolm being connected to King Saud of Saudi Arabia through his sister. These things are also important too, because some people want to keep the myth going that people wasn't trying to get at him on the Islamic side, trying to give him dawah on the Islamic side until at the last minute, then when he made Hajj. No, this stuff was in the works for a long time. His sister, the same one he brought in the nation and kicked out or suspended from the nation, she took Shahada before him and tried to give him dawah. Then we have here where she saved up money to make Hajj herself, but in 1964, she gave that money to her brother, Malcolm, to make Hajj, because she thought it was more important that he went himself. And she was like an entrepreneur. Like, she used to rent out, buy houses, rent them out, and stuff like that. So that's how she had money. Very influential. SubhanAllah, we know that Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, was assassinated on February 21st, 1965. What a lot of people don't know is that Ella, her son, Rodnell, who's writing about this, they was all in Queens on the 20th, the night before, at the house where Malcolm's family was staying. There was a couple and they had children, and they allowed Malcolm's family to stay there. Because remember, this house had got firebombed. So they're staying at this friend's house in Queens. And Malcolm that night was intended on going to the hotel and then giving that speech the next day. But he wanted to stay long enough till his children fell asleep so he can, like tuck them in and kiss them and stuff. And so he mentions that basically the last thing that his children got from Malcolm was him kissing them in their sleep when they finally went to sleep. But he said he didn't leave to go to the hotel right away. They got in the car and started talking about a whole lot of stuff. Like, he felt like, I don't know how much longer I got. And they had one of those type of conversations. And so he says they was in the car talking because they wanted to leave the house and they didn't know what was bugged and what wasn't bugged. And they felt the car was the safest place to talk. But, and he narrates, in other words, Malcolm's nephew narrates how he fell asleep and he missed a lot of the conversation, right? And he will never know he says, we don't know what they was talking about while I was sleeping, unless the government had their listening devices. Maybe they could tell us, right? So that's what he says in his book. So they drove back to Boston early in the morning on the 21st. We know in the afternoon, Malcolm gets assassinated. They hear about it. They drive back from Boston to New York. And this famous picture that you see right there, all the way to the right is the Undertaker. Next to him is Betty. Behind them is Percy Sutton, very famous person in New York, very influential person, connected to the first Black mayor, David Dinkins. I think at one time they had owned the Apollo Theater, a very influential person. But at that time, he was Malcolm's family's lawyer. And then all the way to the left, that's Ella, Malcolm's sister. A lot of times people don't know who that is in that picture. That's his sister, Ella Collins. And so she identified, she was there, and they're coming out of Bellevue Hospital. That's what that picture is. And they're identifying his body. So that picture was taken when they came out. She's the one who paid for his janazah. She paid for all of the funeral expenses. And so that picture you see there is where Malcolm used to have his meetings at for his two organizations, the Organization of African American Unity, OAAU, and Muslim Mosque Incorporated. And that's her there less than a month later on March 15th. Now, I got a video I want to play. I don't know if it'll play. Nope. No, I don't think it'll play. But she's taken over the organization, Ella Collins. And she basically says in there that, there's no one that's going to be able to measure up to her brother. But as the one that's in charge of the organization, I'll do my best to put people in place that will carry forward the mission. And then part of what Rodnell, her son, Malcolm's nephew, did hear in the car, they was talking about the assassination attempts, all of them that was done on him. And Malcolm convinced her that, the nation may be involved, but they're not the ones pulling the strings. And she says that in this talk right now. She said, they may have had their hands on the trigger, but this thing was bigger than them. She says that in this talk right here. The talk that we can't play. And subhanAllah, I found this picture, which is extremely important. But first, in 1988, she had her legs amputated, both of them. That's her in that wheelchair. Because she had got caught gangrene. It was when your limb dies, there's no blood circulating, it dies. And that was a consequence of her struggle with diabetes. And so we mentioned here the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as it was narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. Ni'matani maqbunun fihima kathira min an-nasi, as-sihhatu wal-faragh. That there are two blessings which many people waste or many people neglect, and that is good health and free time. And a lot of times when you're doing this work, a lot of times you don't take care of your health, and you have to take care of your health. And that's one of the things that Ella said that she loved about Betty, is because she felt that Betty, she was a nurse. She was teaching before she met Malcolm on how to take care of your health and how to eat and all that kind of stuff. And she was glad that Malcolm, she didn't marry who she wanted Malcolm to marry. Malcolm didn't marry who she wanted him to marry. But he was glad that she married her, because at least she would be making sure that he was eating properly. So this is a newspaper obituary of her. She moved to a nursing home, right? And she died on August 3rd, 1996, at the age of 84. Ella Collins Institute at the Islamic Society of Boston Cultural Center is named after her. So she died in 1996. There's a lot we can say about Ella Collins. I only scratched the surface. She was very active even after her brother died. And Malcolm looked at her almost like his second mother. And she was like the only one that could shut Malcolm up. Anyone that know Malcolm, I met a few people that met Malcolm. Malcolm had a strong personality, and a lot of people didn't like that about him. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant, and he was a disciplinarian. Like the same discipline he carried himself with, he expected everybody around him to have that same level of discipline. And just to mention, because like I said, I wanted my talk to be about some of the women around him. But like, for example, the famous captain, Yusuf Shah, Joseph Shah, Captain Joseph, at Temple Number 7. Like, he was accused back when Malcolm was still in the Nation and Good and head of Temple Number 7. He was accused of domestic abuse with his wife. So Malcolm carried out the punishment of him. They had like literally a trial, right? And he got put out or suspended from the Nation. Malcolm disciplined him behind that. And so a lot of people, Joseph wasn't feeling that. He was the head of security. Malcolm, I don't care what you are, man. You beat your wife, we ain't having that, right? So you're going to get disciplined like everyone else. Because a lot of times in these groups, the brothers want, come on, you brother like us, come on, sometimes you got to, make sure that, pimp hand is way strong. That type of nigga stuff that a lot of us be still on, even after we take Shahada, right? A lot of times that exists in our groups. And Mark was like, no, man, we serious about this. You can't be beating your wife, right? And he probably felt extra some kind of way about it because I didn't mention it when I was talking to his mother. But according to his own account and according to his siblings' account, that Malcolm's own father used to put hands on his mother. And so he probably, that probably played into it. But Malcolm wasn't tolerating that. No, you're not going to be putting hands on your wife while I'm in charge. And so I said I was going to talk about them three, but I took up too much time and I didn't finish that part of the slide. So maybe y'all got to get that some other time with Sister Betty, inshallah. So we talked about Malcolm's mother and we talked about Malcolm's older sister. And I hope that's enough to satisfy you, hold you down for a little bit while we make room for Imam Otis, Imam Amin Muhammad of Atlantic City, Masjid Muhammad of Atlantic City. Takbir! Allahu Akbar. When we used to do takbirs before we used to clap? Before we converted from takbir.
No, I want to. Yes, sir, black man. That's right. Make it plain. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Right. I want some stuff. Come on, man. Long live Muhammad. Come on. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Come on, give me some stuff.
Long live Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. I ask Allah to grant us the sincere intentions. I've been on ice so long, I feel frozen. Y'all got the longest openings I've ever heard in my opening statement, which will last the next 45 minutes. Right? But it's good. Nice to hear y'all. I'm benefiting greatly. I want to, from listening to y'all, I got a lot of things that came to my mind off of what I want to talk about. So I just want to mention a few things before I go into what I want to talk about was the last week and the intense schedule of Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz in that last week, which for me was very significant because I'm going to talk of this from the side of an imam. Leaders in the Black community suffer a whole lot and still sacrifice a whole lot. I want us to highlight that point. Leaders in the Black community, especially the Black Muslim community, imams, those who are in those positions of leadership, they suffer a lot and they sacrifice a lot. Not only do they suffer, there are some forgotten soldiers and martyrs in this work that go unnoticed, and that is the wives and the children, the family of those leaders. They sacrifice just as much as the leader, but it's not seen. In fact, sometimes they sacrifice more in certain areas than the actual leader, but the leader gets the credit for the sacrifice of the family, of the wife, of the children. And when Imam Naim was talking about Sister Ella Collins and Malcolm X's mother and Betty Shabazz, all the sacrifices that they make, you know, people don't really honor them or think about them. And each of us, if we look as imams, the work we do, our families, they suffer so much and sacrifice so much of their loved one, of their husband, of their father, of their brothers, right? They lose a lot so that the community can benefit. And I think when we listen to the stories of those honorable women, you know, we need to consider not just the past. There are Ella Collins and, you know, Sister Louise, is that her name? Malcolm X's mom? And Sister Betty Shabazz. And in the Muslim community, in the Black community, it's hundreds of them that right now are doing the same thing, but they're not recognized. So I wanted to take a moment to first thank my own family for the sacrifices they make for us to do the stuff we do. And also my fellow imams, Imam Faheem and Imam Naim, to thank their family as well, because we're only really able to do the things we do. Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz was only really able to do the things he do because of those women and those children that stood behind them through thick and thin, who heard all the complaints, who go through all the suffering and the pain and the shortages and everything that goes with ad-da'wa ilallahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. We can't forget them, right? You know, you just get the smiley face and the assalamu alaikum and the boom bap and the Imam Genius and Otis, and they get, leave me alone, I'm doing the work, stop crying. You know, they get that. It's about my mission. They get that. And all the women get that. So I say, you know, we should, from listening to that, we should say thank you, not only to them, but to the women who are still going through and the children who are going through what they go through today. What they went through, they're still going through it today. Because, you know, we sing heroes after they're dead, but actually we forget those heroes are alive right now. And they will be those people that somebody's going to be doing a PowerPoint about them and their families in the future. So we should at least have some gratitude to give them a thanks for the sacrifices they make. So I say to my family, and y'all can say to yours, thank you. I appreciate it. Now get to work. Right? So that's one thing, but I want to look at that before I go into this last week. That last week was preceded by something. Alex Haley, he mentions in the autobiography of Malcolm X, a story, and I just want to share it with you. I want to look at it quickly and share it with you, right? That you need to think about. It's like really deep, to me at least, related to what we were talking about. So Alex Haley brought Alhaj Malik Shabazz two oldest daughters a doll, right? Playing it with a brown complexion, a black doll. And this doll, when you grab it by the hand, it can walk with you, right? So Malcolm was happy that he got this doll, that Alex Haley gave him his dolls. So he was smiling. He said, and listen to this. He said, well, what do you know about that? Well, how about that? So he bent over to examine the dolls, and his expression showed how touched he was. He was like, man, you got these dolls for my daughters. Then he said something. He said, you know, this isn't something I'm proud to say, but I don't think I've ever bought one gift for my children. Everything they play with, either Betty got it for them or somebody gave it to them. Never me. That's not good. I know it. I've always been too busy. That's deep. I've always been too busy. He's so occupied in the work, in building the mission, saving our people, that his own children never received a gift from their father. And it's something I'm highlighting this because if you don't learn from history, you will repeat it. And when I read this and the stuff that I'm going to talk about, I immediately thought about my own self and my own children. How much time do your children get of you when you're doing this work? Everybody wants something from the leader. Everybody wants something from the person in front. And the ones who have the priority to receive sometimes are neglected. He says it himself, that I never brought my children a gift. Everything they play with, someone else got it. For all of us as Black men, there's a price to pay when we're not there for our children, no matter what the excuse is. Our children are the future, and we must make time for them. That's a lesson we should learn. Because he's saying that in a regretful thought over some dolls and some gifts, but he's reflecting that how much of my life is taken away from my children who desperately need me. And not knowing that when he gets this, you're talking about in 2 months, he's not going to be here anymore. So he's looking at something. This is Christmas time. In 2 more months, he's out of here. He will be assassinated. And that's the spirit he left. But I want you to hang on this because this is important when we take in and we refuse to give. It's a result of it. Then he mentions another statement that I thought was deep. So the house he was living in was belonging to the nation. And towards that last week, before they were in court battle to get him out their house after he had left the nation. And finally, the judge's decision came that within that week that you got to get out, right? You have to leave. So that was a house in Elmhurst, but it belonged to the nation. It wasn't his house. And he said something. Now imagine this. He's gotten this notice, you got to get out. And his wife's pregnant. He got other kids. He's getting from the nation $150 a week, right, which is not a lot of money with a big family like that. Even in 1965, that's not a lot of money with a big family. He says something as he's thinking about it, because this will get you the mind of a person. He said, a home is really the only thing I've ever provided Betty since we've been married. And actually, that home was not his. That was provided to him by the nation. The car was provided to him by the nation. So actually, he never actually gave her anything. That's a sacrifice on that woman. Because you're looking at what he's saying, but she's raising all these kids and really no money. And if you remember, in the movie, they try to depict this situation where she started really, they only had an argument, and he said it one time, and it was over the money, about the nation, not taking care of you, and if something happened to you, what are we going to do? And he was deluded, like, the nation's going to take care of you, you don't got to worry about that. She was like, I ain't going to think. Listen, tell you, all of us as imams, I ain't been in your house. I guarantee you had this conversation before. Am I right or wrong, imams? I'm not no fly on your wall, but I'm guarantee you, 1,000% you've had this discussion before. When you're making all the sacrifice for them out, your wife come and be like, who gonna take care of this? We know the conversation. She had that conversation. He said, we never had a dispute except over this. And he said, I regret it. I wish I would have done something. So he says here, talking about that court order, he said, I never really gave her anything. That house I provided since we've been married. And they, meaning the nation, want to take that away. Man, I can't keep putting her through changes. All she put up with, man, I've got to love this woman. Whew. That's some deep stuff. He said, I can't keep on putting her through changes. All she's put up with, man, I've got to love this woman. That's deep. Think this is him. This is all happening right towards the last. This is all happening in his mind. The last week, these conversations are happening. All this stuff is going through his mind. He's really thinking about, what about my family? Right? What about my kids? And it's important because he built two organizations, OAAU and Muslim Mass Incorporated. And those organizations fell apart not even a year after his death. It didn't even last a year. Even when Sister Ella took over, it was collapsing because everybody broke out. So you should understand something, that there were no men to lead that community, to the point that a woman took the helm. Now, she was a strong Black woman, but that should tell you something. That this was this great leader we all love and we talk about. They abandoned ship. So his family was left to struggle. Wife, kids, a newborn baby. Sounds familiar? That's something to think about. And when we really examine the life of Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, it should be some lessons we take for individuals and the community, because all of us have a responsibility in that. You know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned Whoever does not thank the people has not thanked Allah. And that goes in several ways that people are sacrificing and serving you. You got to show some gratitude and some support for all these institutions and what makes them go around. And a lot of it is the families behind these leaders. It's just something to think about, right? So let me just go quickly. Oh, one more. I'm sorry. This gets quite interesting. So he was asking for an advance. For some advance on the money because he needed to get a house. But before that, he had went on a trip. The court thing came. They said, you got to get out. So after he made his trip, when he came back from Africa, the agent for the book gave him a nice size check. And a little bit after that, he got that check. He was laughing, just thinking. He said, it's evaporated. I don't know where. He got some money, and it just went like this. Gone. Broke. Something looks like, yeah, I know that feeling, right? No bread. He got a little money, gone. And what he was doing, now he's doing all this traveling, doing all this stuff. This is how he was trying to earn his money. He's calling around in activities. He's writing in telephone acceptance for invitation to speak at colleges and universities, right? What is he doing? He's talking, but don't forget also, he needs to earn those honorariums. And they was giving him honorariums between $150 and $300. He's trying everything to not only take care of his family, but guess where that money's going? Most of that money is going back into those organizations because people don't donate. So he would be, after every speech, going around asking for money. And when it falls short, they forget that he's the one doing this to pay for that. Sound familiar, brothers? So he's doing lectures, and the money he's getting from lectures, he's taking it to keep the organization going. It ain't all going home. Sometimes none of it went home. Right? So let's go to the last week of his life quickly. I just wanted to highlight that because that's a stress in itself. So I want you to see the pressure he's under mentally, people trying to kill him. They made like 2 assassination attempts right before that week. They've been trying to get at him. He's getting phone calls. His wife is getting phone calls. He's going through a lot, and he's broke. He don't have money. And he's trying to run an organization with Negroes fighting. And he wrote back, y'all can destroy the organization if y'all want. And y'all can't work together. Y'all want to fight, undermine each other. I believe I can start it again. This is when he's over Africa. He's going through the fitna of trying to run an organization, and we do what we do. This is all happening. So I'm trying to put you in his mind at this moment. This man was amazingly strong. With all the stress of going on, he's still rolling. And he said, I'm going to leave that to Monday. So this is going on. He's traveling. He goes to Alabama. He goes to France, London. And he comes back after all the traveling. He comes home Saturday the 13th with his family. That night, 2:45 in the morning, boom, firebomb his house. He's getting his wife and children. They get out the house. Now, after take an hour for the fire people to come and put the fire out, he's outside with his kids, baby, wife. Just imagine a tense scene. And every little bit of stuff he got is burned down. House ruined. Half of it burned. Don't know what's left. Can't get in there, get out in February. Yeah, it's wintertime. So that's a stress. Somebody trying to kill him. Now, what little bit he had, gone. He takes his wife to a friend's house. He's living now you break your family. She's living with the kids, with friends of the family friends. He does that. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. So let's figure, you're talking about that whole episode don't finish till about like 5 in the morning. All the stuff, police, interviews, all that. Get your family settled, 6. What's the first thing he do? He takes an airplane Sunday morning to Detroit. That's some deep stuff. He'll stop the mission. Sunday morning, after going through all that, he could easily cancel my family. I don't know what's, nothing stops the work. He jumps on a plane and goes to Detroit to give a lecture. Think about his dedication. And when you think about that verse that I ended at the end of last week's talk, where Allah said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصَّادِقُونَ. That the real believers are those who believe in Allah and His Messenger and therein never doubt, and they struggle with their wealth and themselves in the path of Allah. These are the truly sincere servants. That's him. That's a soldier, man. Like, with all that going on, he was like, I still got this. We got to give da'wah. We still got to go save our people. We got to help our community. Anyone in the world would have said, no problem, just cancel it. We'll cancel it. How many of us abandon ship and we don't got none of that going on? We make an excuse not to come for nothing. Look what he's going through, but he don't break his promise. He promised them he would be there. He's there because he's realizing the mission. This is like, these are the, like al-wafa. He fulfills his covenants, right? As-sidq, truthfulness. Al-istiqama, steadfastness. Al-hilm, forbearance. As-sabr, patience. All these noble characteristics of the awliya, if you look at him, you see these things in him. Like, amazing. You don't think think about his wife. She's like still supporting him. And they don't got nothing. Anytime I'm going to do a lecture, let one of us try that. Right? That shows you the level of the wife. Like, I don't even got a place to stay. And you talking about going to give a lecture? They were all in the struggle. And what made that type of sacrifice, it's still needed in the work today because the situation ain't changed from 1965 to 2025. Same stuff. So he comes back from Detroit and that Monday, he gives another lecture. So he's back, he check on his family, and he got another lecture Monday in the Autobiography ballroom. And that's when he starts talking about who bombed his house, who's trying to kill him. And he said something to show you the level. So as he's giving that talk, he's on the stage in the Audubon boardroom, right? And he says this statement: I've reached the end of my rope. I wouldn't care for myself if they would not harm my family. That's deep. This is giving a lecture. He's in the middle in front of everybody. He's like, I've reached the end of my rope. He's stressed, but he don't stop. He's stressed out, rightfully so. But he don't stop. That's something. That's yaqeen. That's certainty. The mission must be fulfilled. He don't stop. He has every right to take a break, but he don't stop. Every right to take a break. He gives that lecture. Tuesday, he's telling Alex Haley, because he was supposed to go and stay a week to get a rest. He's like, I got to cancel that. Right? He was supposed to go to Alex Haley's place and stay and relax and, just get a break. And that was supposed to be the 20th and the 21st. So that would have been Saturday and Sunday, right? He's like, I can't come. I got all this stuff going on. I got work to do. I got stuff to do. So he's meeting. And during that conversation, he's still talking about finding a house, talking to real estate people. And he's meeting with real estate people, looking at different houses. He's doing all that because he's still trying to do his part as a father. Wednesday, he's working in the OAU, doing the stuff, trying to organize the community. Thursday, he does a radio broadcast. He's on the radio talking. Friday, he does an interview with the Life magazine. He's talking about people trying to kill him and assassination attempts because they asking him, is this stuff real? Because remember, Captain Yusuf Shaw, he told us, oh man, he bombed, and the minister, James, he bombed his own house. So he's like, they're trying to make it like he made it all up. He's like, come on. So all that, they're trying to lie him in the papers, he's got all this stuff going on. Saturday, he goes with his wife to look for a house. And this is interesting, and it goes back to the women. So Saturday morning, he goes with his wife looking for a house. This is on the 20th, the day before his death. So they go and they find a house in Long Island in a Jewish neighborhood. He's looking for some peace, right? I want you to think about this. In a fine Jewish neighborhood, he's looking for some peace. So sometimes we take the humanist out of people. He's looking, look, man, I got to put them somewhere where they ain't got to worry about all this crap. Look at the strategic placement. Because you're coming in starting stuff, they're going to call the cops on you, right? Like, I want you to think about the mind. A lot of times we take the humanness out of a hero. The heroes are human too. Look where he chooses to live. And he's put it in context of all he's saying. I got to love this woman. I can't keep putting her around all this stuff. I got to put her somewhere where she's comfortable. They deserve it. He ain't go live in the hood. He went outside to a neighborhood that he felt would be more conducive to their comfort and peace of mind. That's something to think about, because it's other places you could have went. Why there? You got to imagine the area. The Jews, that's a protected area. You know how they live. It's comfortable. It's protected. Don't have a bunch of crime. You don't have a bunch of stuff. if you out of place, you out of place. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's thinking. Like, so now the challenge here, he says that they wanted a $3,000 down payment. And he liked it. Sister Betty liked it. Like, yes, finally. They said, okay, it's going to cost another $1,000 to move in. That's $4,000. He don't got no money. What did he have at that time trying to get $4,000? He said, all I've got is about $150. He has $150, wife pregnant, bunch of girl children, babies. They're homeless. He's in a hotel. They got $150. That's it. Can you imagine the stress? And to keep going and still talking about the people and us, and he's in that condition. Imams, when we get frustrated sometimes at the support around us, right? That was 1965. We ain't changed much as a community. Now you can show the strength of the nation though here. So there was bad things, but they took care of him so that at least he didn't have that worry, but his own organization couldn't do it. That's something to think about. He has two organizations, one just Muslims and another one for the black people. In both organizations, he's not getting paid. He got to pay, and they can't even help him get the basic things that he needs. That's something to think about. So he goes to Alex Haley and he tells him, see if the agent for the publisher could front him some money on projected profits. This is on Saturday. And not only that, so he describes it. If we can get this money, he says that they're going to try to get the house, but look how he got to get the house. They got his sister Ella to put the house in her name. She agreed. And I want to show you the condition of black people, the struggle in this stuff. But he's asking her to put this house in her name. And let me show you the soldier family, brothers and sisters, that old stuff we used to be like, don't, man, your family, no, your family, they'll be the ones for you. When everybody else turn their back, your family usually will be there, maintain your family ties. He said, she's going to do that. He said, but I owe her $1,500 for my trips, that Hajj and all that stuff. She paid for that, and he never paid her back. So she ain't saying, oh, man, you owe me $1,500 in 1965 is a lot of money. It was her Hajj money. She gave it to him. And now you come back, not even a year later, talking about you need me to put $4,000. You need that money, and you need to put the whole house in my name? And I got to carry that bill? And she was like, no problem. Because that's on a mortgage. So you're talking about the house, maybe $40,000 or $50,000, something like that. And she's putting that in her name. How much she love her brother. How much and she know what's going on. And she says, still that, I'll put myself in front for you. That's families. That's some deep stuff. Now I'm reading this and I think about it. I'm like, that's some serious sacrifice. You owe me $1,500 that you ain't paid. And you traveling all around. She doesn't say to them, oh, you traveling all around here, you overseas, you doing this, you going to Africa, and you ain't got no money, and you come back telling me put something in my name. You know how we do it. She ain't do none of that. Labaik, I'm at your service. That tells you family relationships, family connect, because he couldn't go nobody else and get that done. And you notice he kept going throughout his life. So she been bailing him out a lot in life. When he got in that stuff with, what's that, Archie, he went back to, you in New York doing your thing, back to your, she's always been big sis. Even when you, one of the most famous black men that's on TV, but you broke. She's still with her brother. Think about that. That's some deep stuff, man. That's some serious family love when you think about it. And then we got people telling people, because she ain't necessarily agree with all his religious movements. She's like, yo, bro, you tripping. But you're my brother. And I'm with you. It wasn't like she was like down in everything she was doing. She doing her own stuff. Right? But she loved her brother. And she supported her brother. That's some key stuff. But then think about something that after they would give the house, saying later we could put it in Betty's name or Attila's name, still like have to figure out ways to move because he's under pressure. He knows if his name come up, he might not get rented to. They might not, can't rent, got to buy. It's always some stuff he's going through. Can you imagine the mindset that with all this going on? And you know, the most stressful thing with all that is money. You know, money will stress you. All of us know that. He's going through all that and he's still working. He's still doing the work for the people and the work for the da'wah and teaching. He's never stopping. And I think there's so much of a lesson in this alone. And then he's Sunday because he told her don't come and leave the kids there. And then Sunday, finally, he tells her, come. Like, and then that's how she ends up with her husband seeing him being assassinated. Like, after all the struggle, it's like that sacrifice of the women. Amazing, amazing, amazing. There is a part that I want to mention, but I'm going to leave that out. But all that work, and we didn't really take care of his family as a community. And we see the result of it in the lives of his children and grandchildren in terms of Dean, that all his work got pushed to the wayside, and they're not the leaders in our community. No successorship. We owe a debt to Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. And the best we could do is pray for him But also, we cannot make similar mistakes. We can take care of our leaders. We can take care of our communities, our institutions. We can build things that are sustainable and they last. We can do that because we can say we're not going to do what happened to our great Shaheed Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. And they made in the Amsterdam News after his death, they had a headline in the paper. It said, Malcolm X died broke. It was in the paper. He left his 4 daughters and pregnant wife with no insurance of any kind, no savings, and no income. We know what he was doing. He was sacrificing. What were we doing as a community to ensure that that never happened? He's sacrificing. And he left an institution, 2 organizations that no longer exists. We let them go too. This is a lesson for all of us. When we talk about all the good things, and all of it is good because any lesson is a good, right? We need to learn, what do we learn from these things? How do we benefit? How do we make a change? Because what we've been doing is the same thing that was done before, and we're getting the same result. And there's that old saying, it's insanity to keep doing the same thing, hoping to get a different result. That's insanity. But let's not let our story end like that. We need legacy. And we need to do things that build legacy. Let's not make the last week in the lives of our leaders a difficulty like that, right? Collectively, we don't know how much time we got, but collectively, we have to build sustainable institutions, sustainable leadership, sustainable families that can continue, because we're talking about now 60 years later. And if we ask our leaders and examine our institutions, it's just a different time, but the same old story. The story's the same, it's just different years. And one of the successors, in a way, of Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz in terms of movement is Imam Talib Abdul Rashid of MIB. That's another story someone asked, we could talk about it. He said something to me that I will never forget. We was at the African American Islamic Summit, so me and him sitting down and talking. He said, Imam, and I never forget this. He looked at me and said, Imam, can I give you some advice? He said, the number one occupational hazard in this work that we're doing is the lack of self-care. He said, take care of yourself, man. And I would like to add to that, from reading this about Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, rahimahullah, another occupational hazard that's connected with the lack of self-care is the lack of family care. And those who are sacrificing this work, take care of yourself and take care of your family. That's an obligation. Allah gave us that in the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ku anfusakum wa ahlikum. Save yourself and your families. And that's in terms of teaching them, but part of teaching them is also providing and making sure they're sustainable. And I've had this conversation with fellow imams. Yo, man, make sure you take care of yourself and your family. Don't let people just drain you and throw you to the wayside talking about free sabilillah. Make sure you get taken care of. Because you make all these sacrifices and the whole thing just crumble. Nah. We have to be accountable. And here's the effect. When we don't do it, the children are not interested in the work because they only see the hardships. So they don't continue to work themselves because they're like, I don't want nothing to do with that. And Imam Naeem mentioned it. Sometimes those children feel like you personally did something to them because they were neglected, because you're too busy doing the work. We need to pay attention. Since we are talking about learning and benefiting, that's a benefit. And all this you can read, right? And he also he's around all these millionaires, immigrants, Africans, Arabs, Pakistanis, everybody's around him and nobody giving him no money and support. He's traveling, come visit, come give a talk, come here, come to this university, come to my oyster station, come to my country, and none of them giving him no money. And he complained about that I can't keep doing this and no one's supporting me. All that Saudi stuff we talking about, they promised him this and that, no money. And then we discover they giving the sheikh $500 a month, but they ain't giving him nothing. Think about that. They're giving the sheikh $500 a month, the African sheikh, but the black man, nothing. His institution, nothing. His organization, nothing. And him, nothing. And he says it. Let me pull that up. He writes this to the father of Tariq Ramadan. And this is in January 11th, 1965. He says, since my return to the States, I have been very busy trying to get the Muslims reorganized into true Islam. And as the enclosed clippings show, I've been meeting great opposition from Elijah Muhammad faction, for he fears that if Afro-Americans hear true Islam, his own followers will then be able to compare it with what he is teaching, and that they will then leave him. So he is willing to see murder committed to keep true Islam from getting properly organized. And most of his wrath is directed at me because he knows I'm one of the very few people who understand the basic psychology of our own people here well enough to organize them. So I'm kept busy trying to get our people together, while at the same time, I'm kept quite busy just trying to stay alive. That's some deep stuff. This is the last, he's under it. Then look what he goes on to say. Also, upon leaving the Black Muslim movement, we left all of our treasures behind in that movement. Thus, we are very poor. And everything we do, we must do with almost nothing. And this makes it doubly hard. But still, Allah is blessing us with success. This is why I said I would come to speak in Geneva, but would not be able to pay my own way this time. So he comes, and they're going to pay your own way. He said, I can't do it. He said, all the finance we can scrape up is needed for our reorganization work here. All the money we get, go to the organization. We're trying to build. We don't got no money. When I was in Saudi Arabia, this oil-rich country, and all when we talk about, he went to Mecca and this and that, you know, all the story we like to talk about, saw true Islam and real brotherhood and blah, 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 blah. You know that story we tell, right? He said, His Excellency Sayyid Umar al-Sakaf, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, he's at the top of the government, promised their government will help us to rent a suitable place here. But I've heard no more from him. Sound familiar? Just rent a place for us so we can do da'wah. But you can give the sheikh 500 to spread your da'wah a month. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Do you know him? If we had stronger support from the Muslim world, it would be very easy for us to spread true Islam here in this country. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? If we had support from the Muslim world, stronger support from the Muslim world, it will be very easy for us to spread true Islam here in this country. Who could do it better than us? Who? Who knows this place? Who knows this culture? Who knows the mindset better than us? Yet we not supported like that. Same story. Think about that. He's going through all that and he still works despite rejection, betrayal, lies, death threats, poverty, struggling, homeless. He still works for the sake of the people and the sake of Allah. He needs to be honored. And still to this day, you're talking about someone who needs a national holiday? He deserves one. That's a sacrifice for the sake of our people. Not just for the deen that they try to make him just, no, he was sacrificing for the people because that was his crowd, bunch of black people. That was his audience. That was the ones he was sacrificing for. So we must do this work. We owe. You know what I said? You owe? Yeah, we owe. Inshallah, I hope that my opening was not too long, but all of us talk, so we'll take a few questions and inshallah bring this one to a close. Any questions? Please, comments, put up. We had one, Imam Naeem, it was for you.
Her wiki page mentions she sent students over to Al-Azhar.
That was Ella Collins he's talking about.
Yeah. Are there any students who finished the program and ended up coming back? Yes, sir. Imam MIB, Sheikh Tawfiq, rahimahullah, who was one of them. Those scholarships that was talking about is those scholarships that Malcolm came back with. She took control of the organization, so she was like the point person facilitating all of that stuff.
And another one was Sheikh Ibrahim Ismail. He was over there at the same time with all that, and I believe he got one of those scholarships too. And he came back, was working with Beitul Quraysh in Newark, because he was teaching Arabic in the school they built. And he helped, he was in the early 70s doing that. You know, the football player, Rocket Ismail, was playing for Notre Dame and then went to the NFL. His father.
Mm-hmm.
His father was one of them. But unfortunately, that continuation never happened. And I'm telling you, a lot of that relates, it can be traced to the sacrifice those children saw their parents go through and the collapse of organizations, no sustainability. So a lot of the children, that's something we need to think about. The effect of the work on children. in future generations.
Just real quick about Sheikh Alama Tawfiq, rahimahullah. He founded the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood in Harlem, where Imam Talib Abdul Rashid, the Imam that Imam Amin just mentioned, is the Imam at. Just a lot of y'all, I never met Sheikh Tawfiq. By the time I came on the scene, he had already passed. But just so maybe people give some connection. If you've seen the TV show, the series Blacklist, you know the series Blacklist? Nobody here watches TV, but
yeah, we too pious for that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we don't watch no TV.
There's a famous black character on there. His character name is Dembe or Dembe. That's Sheikh Tawfiq's son. That is Sheikh Tawfiq's son, and he's a practicing Muslim on the show and in real life. I just wanted to mention just to give y'all some connection, inshallah.
And I had a question for you, Imam Naeem. Those children that was fathered by Elijah Muhammad, whatever happened to them?
They're still alive, and some of them are active in the NOI now.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. But you have to understand that they rewrote history. Now they were his wives. And so a lot of them are with Farrakhan now. I don't know if she's still alive, but this one, she used to have an article in she used to have a column in the Final Call. I think her name was Tinyetta Muhammad or whatever. She was one of them.
She passed, I think.
Yeah. She was one of them, yeah. But you know, this stuff is deep. So, yeah. The children also isn't one of their leaders or imams from Farrakhan's Nation of Islam, one of his children. What's his name? The light-skinned one.
That's his son. Ismail, right?
Yeah. Isn't that one of them?
No, that's his son.
Whose son?
That's Farrakhan's
Elijah Muhammad's son.
Oh, is Elijah Muhammad's son?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not from Clara Muhammad.
Oh,
that's from one of the secretaries.
Oh, yeah, that's his Farrakhan's son. You know, you talking about the one that's always standing behind him?
No, not him.
No. The older one who's like a minister.
Oh.
He's always opening up. That's Elijah Muhammad's son.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know from who, but that's his son.
I think it's from that same one, Tinyetta Muhammad. Don't get me to lying, though. I don't remember. Aziza said, wasn't W.D. Muhammad a son as well? Yes, from his wife, Clara Muhammad.
But I don't know about
Tinyetta Muhammad was his favorite, huh?
Because a lot of people don't know those little details, because a lot of people think that, you know, yeah, Malcolm just was mentioning them secretaries because he wanted some, you know, salacious stuff to feed to the press and stuff. Malcolm felt guilty about that. You know, a lot of times, let me not get off track, because like I mentioned Evelyn, right? Malcolm felt like he was at fault for, you know, he the one who brought in the Nation of Islam. He the one that got the job with Elijah Muhammad. Then this happened, right? And that was his boo, you know, before, right? So, you know.
Yeah, that's Sister Tanetta's son.
Tanetta? Okay. Yeah. You see, my memory ain't that bad. And see, like a lot of times in movies, they can't tell they gotta play with the truth in order to make the movie good, but also a lot of times they be trying to avoid lawsuits. So you remember in the movie where the dude came and he was like, "Are you Elijah's pimp?" And they said, "Get him up out of here." And they lift him up like before you blink your eyes. And Mark said, "Yeah, that boy he's just hungry from knowledge. Let's go eat." Right? That's what that's alluding to, right? Now, a lot of these secretaries that got pregnant, Malcolm put them in position to be close to him. So, and also another thing about Malcolm, in movies, they do composite characters, especially when it's like based on a true story. A composite character is when they make one character up, but in real life, that character represents like 3 people or more people, right? So they had Baines, right? Baines didn't exist. Baines was Bambi from prison. Baines was John Ali, and I forgot who else Baines was. But Baines was at least 3 people. There was no person named Baines in Malcolm's life. It was Bambi, the one who got him reading and learning history and stuff like that in prison. There, and it was John Ali. We spoke about him, supposed to be FBI agent that lived in his house. That house in Elmhurst. At one time, they lived together, right? The same one. He's prominent in pictures. You know, some people say that when they finally killed Malcolm, that he reported the deed directly to Elijah, and they got a picture and they say that that's what was happening. But Allah knows best, right? And I forgot what another person that Baines' character was. He wasn't just Baines didn't even exist in real life.
When I look at, I think this is like a beginning for us. Oh man, I ain't even do the work. I'm tripping. I'm sorry. Imam Faheem, you gotta get blocked out again. Yeah, there you go. We have the these are all reflections on our upcoming retreat, which is the Malcolm X Legacy in Action, Malcolm X's Enduring Relevance, coming to 21st, 22nd of February in Atlantic City. And these are just really introductory reflections, but during the retreat, we're going to go into some deep, deep details of his life, the events that came after it, where we at today, connecting the dots, the aspect of Islamic knowledge, and where we go from here. Because history should be studied in a way that facilitates future development and empowerment, and actually building a legacy that can be left behind. So I think when we talk about Malcolm X, Alhaj Malik Shabazz, his life, when you study it in context, is still extremely relevant. It's like as if we're still in 1965. If you just took any book about his life, changed the dates, it would sound the same. You would think like we're talking about right now. Everything we describe today is still happening in one form or another. The players are different, but the same old, as they said, they run in the same old script, right? And for us, we have to think about a legacy. When we're all gone, what's going to be said about us, right? I never myself, this is me, I'm different from Imam Naeem. It's like, what did you get ready to say about me? Though I understand and I agree, but I put it in context when I think about the nation, when I think about Elijah Muhammad, when I think about Farrakhan, when I think about all these people, I look at Black people. I don't look at individuals, myself. I'm not criticizing you, Imam Naeem. I'm just talking about me, brother. So don't get personal. I don't need a Musalima letters part 2, Imam Amin Muhammad, right? We don't need all that. Right? I'm just making a point. Let me move this from you, Imam Faheem. Let me see you laughing Oh, though I look at what happened to us as a people, because the same thing that happened to Elijah Muhammad, Drew Ali, Dr. York, it still happened to black people today. We've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run them up, not granted access, given false information, and we still like that. Most of us still don't know Islam. No one wants to accept that. But it's true. We don't know Islam so much that we make our own Islam. It's like, I follow Quran and Sunnah. How do you follow something you can't even read? Explain. But this is our mindset. I was talking to somebody the other day. I want to share this with you. Somebody was giving a fatwa. I got to make it so elusive so that they don't point them out. I listened to this stuff. I was like, you cannot be serious. You didn't just say that, did you? The person unwittingly put himself in the position of Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I was like, you tripping, bro. You lunching. And he said it in front of a bunch of people who are leaders. I'm listening. I'm like, you tripping. How did you come up with that? But no study, no teachers, no time, no knowledge. And like, here's my judgment. I can't go into the particular judgment because it'll give away the person. But I said it to him. I was like, you tripping. Like, and I can't even do it. I'm like, stop it. Like, please. This is religion. You cannot do that with it. Like, stop. But this is normal. And when we wake up, we're waking up. But when we wake up probably in another 20 years, we're going to realize you ain't too far away from the nation, bro. Right? You're just a different version of the Nation of Islam. You're a different version of the Ansar Allah community. And we still got a lot to learn. Because we collectively don't like learning. Collectively, we satisfied with form. It looked like we doing it. Collectively, I'm not talking about individuals. Collectively, we in the same condition. That's why this stuff becomes important. And when you look at it from that light, you kind of say, if they had different access, would it be different? Right? So we are talking about Elijah Muhammad and that time Malcolm X. But here's the biggest thing we don't think about. We be talking about when he went to Hajj and he saw that wasn't his first trip overseas. He been around Arabs and Muslims and masjids. He did that while he was in the nation. Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz wasn't a name he got when he went to Mecca. He had that in the nation. When he used to travel, he would travel as Malik Shabazz, as an ambassador for the Nation of Islam in Africa, in Arab countries. He wasn't new to this stuff. But when they redo the narrative, they start making it like, he just discovered this fantasy island. Elijah Muhammad went to Mecca and was treated with royalty.
He made Umrah.
Right, that's what I mean. So those same people have been using black people. And let me give you an example. In 1974, 73, 74, they used to have all the black imams in the country, major ones. They made them a delegation to Mecca. They paid them for Hajj. They tripped. They was on Rabita, the Muslim World League. Remember, Malcolm went and the Muslim World League. They was at the table when they have countries, Black African Americans. You know what they told them? We bring y'all together so y'all all can be under the leadership of Elijah Muhammad. That was what they offered them. That was the Saudis. In 73 and 74, before Elijah Muhammad died, they brought them to give them to follow the nation, to be under Elijah Muhammad. So all this, and this is the same people who now take all of our youth, program them and send them back into our communities. And we don't be addressing this stuff. We don't really see that this same game has been played on us. So if it was all land of Tawheed and land of all that, what the heck they was doing? And don't think these people are stupid. They educated. They at Princeton, Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford. They know what's going on. So really, should we be so critical of our people? Because we're doing the same thing today. I'm not saying we don't tell the truth. I'm not saying that. Before volume 2, I'm not saying we don't tell the truth. I'm just saying, are we gonna, when we start really thinking about it, our people has always had games run on them. And collectively, we have to learn how to combat that stuff while loving our people and uplifting them and building them while dealing with reality. Because it's going to be a lot of, when this story is finally told, because these movements and every game that's been played, when we actually get to really understand our deen, it's going to be a lot of broken hearts. And how are we prepared? Because it's happening. You know, they call it burnout. All these different movements, people get burnt out. Are we preparing for that? Right? You got it? Habibi, I never said I was a prophet. I never said I was a messenger. What are you talking about? Right?
Elijah as seller.
No, I'm just saying it's some serious, when we think about it, it's some serious things to consider, right? Even when we telling the truth, we gotta be extremely merciful in realizing that, man, we still in this struggle, man. It's something to think about. Like, and because you think about it, I was watching while you was watching, right? While you was running your what you call it?
PowerPoint.
Yeah, your PowerPoint. Did you notice something? They was not covered. They were not covered. And today, those same women would be condemned, even if they did the same work. If they did the same work that they done, that we praise today, we would condemn them. Think about that. Now, at the time they were doing that, you know, there were Sunni Muslim women covering, you know, black. Right? And see, that's another part of the narrative that don't get told, which we got to talk about, that simultaneously, that while all this was going on, there were Sunni Muslims. Do you know my mother-in-law used to go and teach, they used to be teaching Malcolm X's kids after she died, after he was passed, and they used to go to Ella Collins in Harlem and Sheikh Camille and my mother-in-law. They would be going there because they was already Sunni, and they would help her. They would stay at her house and they would work with the kids. There's a lot of stories. You had Dean of Law, that institution with Izzeddin. You had a lot of stuff. So it's people doing stuff. It's a lot to talk about. And I think when we put it all in context, it also should teach us patience and mercy. Oh yeah, the Ansars was covering in the 70s, big time. Yes, that's true, Miriam. Thank you for the reminder. When y'all was all looking like, Ansars was niqabbed up, everything, garbs, but we don't got to talk about that, right? But I just think when we look at the whole picture as a people, we should look at things differently. While we still telling the truth, because today, that's what they talk about, like Aqidah wars and stuff. They was having Aqidah wars back then. That ain't nothing new, right? They used to call them muckmucks. My mother-in-law, rahimahullah, we wasn't no muckmucks. What the heck is a muckmuck? So, we've been through a lot, and we still have a lot to go. So let's just while we're telling our story and we're developing, be merciful. Because still to this day, we got in masjids, especially in our community, people that they in the masjid, but still in the nation. They still in the first resurrection. And it's stuff we got to deal with. What's sooner from day one? Al-Azamic, right?
Maybe he meant 1.5.
This is called delusion. We've been on the sunnah from day one. Let the sunnah go forth and don't try to stop it. Once we learn the sunnah, yeah, right.
Our young brother out of Newark, New Jersey, Sunni Kareem, he wants to know what a muckmuck is. You know the story behind that?
You know a story about it? I don't know the story. I know what a muckmuck is.
Yeah, but do you know why they call him that?
No.
Apparently, one of the times where Elijah Muhammad got interrogated or arrested, they asked him his name. And because, he had that, the way he speak and sometimes breathing issues, he, instead of saying Muhammad, he said Muckmuck. Elijah Muckmuck. So that was the way that the Sunnis that was around, or the so-called Sunnis that was around.
I caught that. Since you can write Musalama letters, can you say that again? No, I'm joking.
What clown? That was it. That became their slur against the Nation of Islam. But I ain't no mucks.
Yeah. So I mean, I killed Faheem, man. Why are you hiding out? Why don't you come get some of this work? Why I killed hiding in the comments? You're supposed to be on the screen, historian black man.
Yeah, he definitely is supposed to. He left his post without being properly relieved.
That's right. We're going to take you in the basement. All right, we closing out.
Akil Fada is actually sinful right now.
Yeah, I know. I mean, got some ignorant imams talking about history. And he's the genius of history.
Yeah. People literally write books, give lectures and everything based on his work. And he quiet.
Nah, he don't want us, because I tell you what it is. I'm gonna tell him. He know we get started and we start talking about the past and we bring the past to the present and make sure we still in the past, and he don't want to talk about that. He's like, I just stay in history. Why we got to get present? Because present makes you responsible for what's really going on. That's right. I called you out, Akil. Come tell the truth. Shame the shaitan. Right? No, it's a lot. We got a lot way to go. But inshallah, may Allah make it easy for all of us. I hope y'all join us for this gathering. There's a lot more things we're going to discuss and a lot more detail. But some things we got to talk in present, because I don't know, maybe Muawiyah, maybe Akil, I don't know about that. That's the Shadhili Tariqah. I have no idea about that. A lot of those early groups, they was mixed with a lot of stuff because it was a lack of access. They had a bunch of stuff, and they might not have really known everything they were doing because there wasn't like people didn't like very few people. They didn't know Arabic. They didn't have, it was a lot back in those days. So you may have pieces of things. There's an elder I was talking to. He was in the Islamic Party in the early 70s. And we had a talk, and he was telling me about it. I would like him to come and talk about it. That would be a nice. You heard the Islamic Party in DC, Imam Naeem? Man, I had a beautiful
conversation
with one of them from there.
One of the emails before me at Masjid Mukmin, he was part of the Islamic Party.
Yeah. So I had one is still live, got a still mind, got everything. And we had a long comment, try to get him to come on a roundtable and talk about it. I didn't know that was all black. Did you know that?
Yeah, it was basically happening at the same time as the Dar. It was.
It was. He said that.
It was a black Jamaat.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And they did a lot, right? So, inshallah, we have a lot. We didn't even talk about the Islamic development of Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. And that's going to shock a lot of people when we have that discussion. Because we still living in the modern effects of that. How the enemies of our community change uniforms while running the same game. And that one is going to be, but that one needs to be private because I discovered something. History is nice to talk about, but when you talk about history in the present and you identify real players, people can't take all that. Like, because a lot of us were misguided, and every single one of us, most of us are not like Malcolm. Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. What do I mean by that? Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz he was a person that was a seeker of truth. So when he realized he was wrong, he made the necessary steps. In time, it happened overnight. But when he found out he wasn't on the right, he would try to move to what was right. A lot of us, even when we learn right, we still mentally in WU. Even though we Ahl Sunnah outwardly, but deep down in there, we still carry some stuff. And that goes for all of us, right? So we'll justify where we came from, even though we know it was dead wrong, right? And we'll, even while we're on the truth, still stand up in a way for what is dead wrong. Because it's me. But when it's the other, we don't have that same mercy, right? We'll make all the jokes about the others who were misguided, but us, and us of us who still misguided, we'll justify it. We'll even make kufr Islam in a way. We'll take something that we know is dead wrong and justify it. We got a long way to go as a people, right? And all of us are stuck with that challenge. So we all have our Malcolm X moments, every single one of us. And very few of us were always like born on al-haq, and we have it from the door. Not us. They didn't even give our community that. And even if we had it, We didn't preserve it well, so we don't even remember if we had it, right? You go talk about past communities and ask them for their curriculum and see what you come up with. Ask them what they studied. Ask them their connection. You'll see that it don't exist. So that tells us that collectively, someone ran a game on us. And we're discovering over time the game. And ooh, man, I have a clip I wanted to share, but I'll wait. That once we start thinking intellectually as a people, and we start being concerned of each other as a people, we're going to see things a lot of different. We're going to see things a lot differently. When we start really thinking about ourselves and being concerned of ourselves, here comes somebody want to do grave worship. It never fails. Shh. What part of the Sunnah are you on? We're going to go worship some graves, Hawk. Let me stop. Go ahead. I'm joking. Okay, Imam, y'all want to close out? I'm enjoying myself too much.
Okay, man. You got to pull the shutter down.
Can I pull it down?
Yeah.
I still got stuff in my notes, man.
Oh, man.
We finished, man. They got to wait. You got to save all that.
Yeah, I do. I know. That's why I say that. I was like, man, because
yeah. We done.
I'm going through this today.
We got to save. We got to save it. We gave all the tasters and teasers. Please come join us. February, here's the register link. February 21st and 22nd, and we'll pull it all out. Inshallah ta'ala.
And it won't be streamed live. We want you to come.
We all talked about sacrifice. So now it's time to sacrifice. You can sacrifice. Figure it out. Inshallah.
We want you to come. It ain't the same doing it online. It's not the same. If you can possibly make it, come.
And some of the things, honestly, that we're going to discuss is very sensitive, and it ain't really for public consumption because it needs to be distributed with care. Because someone said something to me about me, which was false. They said, yeah, them Black Imam Roundtable. Remember that guy said that? They even got smoke for Malcolm X. What are you talking about, bro? But because we were talking about things critically, that means we don't love Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, which is totally a mistake.
And that's another thing with a lot of our people. We're not listening. We're not listeners. So some people purposely misunderstand you, and the rest they don't listen good. They just zoom in and out. They're not absorbing what you're putting out there. So since I'm been sent to the store, since I'm going to the store, before we close out and do I want to mention something special. This one thing, I'll never forget it. Just home from the university. So this, I don't remember.
Hold up. Tales from the cell.
And everybody that's been in the university know what that sounds like. That sound is universal. But in any case, it was either I think it was 1996 or 1997. But there was a lecture going on in Manhattan. The title was something like Leadership in the 21st Century After Malcolm X or something like that. And some of the speakers for the event were Dr. Betty Shabazz, rahimahullah, who was still alive at the time, Sheikh Imran Hussein, a brother named
Pakistani guy?
Trinidad.
Oh, this is somebody else.
No, you probably got the same person. You would just assume he's Pakistani, but you know, Trinidad got blacks and Indians there.
The guy who had all the Turkish women? No, not him.
No.
No.
You talking about
yeah. No,
yeah.
Imran, don't he tell all the prophecies? Ain't his name?
Yeah. Signs of the last days, stuff like that.
That's the same guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was giving a lecture there. Amir Islam. I don't know what he's up to. I haven't heard his name in a while. But he used to work at Medgar Evers College along with Betty Shabazz. And some other people was there. I don't remember. Right? So I remember Amir Islam was going on and on in his lecture about how Malcolm learned Deen from Imam Warfdi Muhammad. Now, Betty Shabazz had already spoken. And I remember her saying, you know, I'm going to stop talking now because I get kind of emotional when I talk back and I think about it. So I'm just going to sit in the back and sign, because they had brought copies of Malcolm's autobiography and she was signing them. So I'll be in the back signing them. So Amir Islam and her and Betty Shabazz, they know each other. They're friends. They're cool. So, but he was going on and on about how Malcolm was the student of Imam Warfdi Muhammad. And I'm sitting like a row or two in front of Betty. I heard Betty say, "Whoa, what did he just say?" And then a sister told her, and she said, "Hold on, I have something to say." Well, remember, she just said, "I finished talking," right? So she was on the cane at the time. She walked with her cane back up to the stage, and she said, "I just want to correct my brother. Yes, my husband would consult and learn from Imam Warfdi Muhammad." Remember, Imam Warfdi Muhammad is still alive at this time as well. So, and she said, but not in matters of religion. He had other people he would consult with for that. When he consulted with Imam Warfdi Muhammad, it was about his father, Elijah Muhammad. I just wanted to make that correction. He didn't consult him in matters of religion. He consulted him in matters as it related to his father. He said, "I just wanted to make that correction." She got on her cane, went back to her seat, and so nobody's gonna argue with Betty, right? So I witnessed that, and at the time if any of my children are listening, I think this was before all of y'all was here. I didn't have any children, right? But I had a stepson. And my wife and I at the time were taking turns holding him because, he was crying. He didn't want to cooperate. So sometimes he would cry and then we had to walk out of the lecture hall not to disturb other people. So one of the times I had him, remember I said Betty was like a row or two behind me. She tapped me on my shoulders. It was like, when we give it a try. I was like, yeah. So I gave him to her, and he shut right up. Betty Shabazz. And so Faheem, if you listening, just to remind you, Betty Shabazz held you in her arms and you shut up, but you wouldn't shut up for me though, right? Alhamdulillah. But anyway, so I was going to mention that, but like I said, I didn't finish preparing for the Betty Shabazz part of my presentation. So, and her story, it goes back to, subhanAllah, what Imam Amin was mentioning about legacy, because if you know how she died and all of that, that's subhanAllah. Her grandson, Malik Shabazz, who ended up himself dying mysteriously, legacy. And what he was involved in and connected to right before he passed. This story is deep. It goes a lot of ways. So trust me, what we talked about these last couple of weeks here about Malcolm X, none of us, we're not there's not a spoiler alert. You didn't get anything about what I'm going to present or anyone else. This thing is very deep and it's very comprehensive. So you need to come out, inshallah. So we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you and that you take away some benefit from what we have presented. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us workers and soldiers in his path, like Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz and those who are sincere around him. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.